Well, hello everyone. Good evening. Welcome to Vision for Change. And for those who are on my social media platforms, you already know who I am. I am John Stevenson, and I am so honored to be here. And thank you all for joining us for this live. Listen, we've got so much going on tonight, and I don't want to keep you very long, but I just want to tell you, listen, if you guys have joined me before, whether it's been on the radio or we're doing this on this platform, you know how we do. We have a good time. I want you to engage. I want you to get involved with the conversation. I've got some experts here. We've got one that's missing who will be joining us shortly, but I do thank you all for joining us today. Now, I'll let you know this is sponsored by my man DJ Soul. And who's on the radio? You guys know what I do. I always talk about DJ Soul. He is the baddest, the greatest DJ that ever lived. I say that. I say that because I like him. You know, I like him a lot. And so I'm gonna drop a little QR code down here for DJ Soul. There it is. Hit that QR code. It'll take you to DJSoul73.com, and you can just check him out. Check out some of his videos. Check out some of the things that he's got going on. He's probably joining us tonight, but he is the man. If you're looking for a good DJ, DJ Soul is your man. Well, tonight I've got a conversation because I have some good friends that I talk to about a lot of different topics. And you all know we bring things up. If you follow me on social media, you see I'll talk about so many different things. And so, in some conversations, it seemed like I was circling around something that was similar, something was the same. And one of the things that we found that if you're a part of any organization, you can join an organization based on how they market, how they look, how well they look. And we're going to kind of concentrate a little bit on the faith-based side of things tonight. And it'll look good, but if you're in the house for a while, some things will kind of get a little wonky, and you can kind of give it some grace. But um, things can look great on the outside, but don't look so good on the inside. I like to use the example of working out. Um, Believe it or not, I used to be a gym rat years ago. But yeah, as you get older, I'm spotty in the gym. And so one of the things I find the guys that work out, they like to look good. They like to look good in their clothes, but sometimes they don't eat well. They don't go to the doctors. They don't take care of the insides. And I found the same thing happens in a lot of organizations. They can look good, they can market well, they can do all the things that need to be done. But there are times we'll find that folks are leaving churches. Folks are frustrated for years because they feel like they want to honor God and hang around, so they'll hang around and deal with things that they shouldn't deal with. And so we're gonna have a conversation about tonight. So healthy on the outside, but may not be so healthy on the inside. So I have some guests. I have from the organization, the company called Access Forge. I have two good friends of mine, Cheryl Mitchell and Mark Barlet. Say hello, y'all. Can y'all say wave to the fam? Wave to
Hey, everybody.
everybody. And then I have a good friend of mine, Karen Bryant. We've done some work together. We've worked together in facilitation. I think she's one of the top tier organizers and facilitators from Boom Theory Media. Karen, say hello.
Wow. Hello, everyone. Nice to be here.
Now, it is my tradition because I could read bios forever, but I think that when you talk about yourself, you can give a better picture. If you guys can give me at least a minute and talk about who you are and where you're from, and I'll start with you, Cheryl, and then I'll go to Mark, and then I'll go to Karen.
Hi, everyone. I'm Cheryl Mitchell. I'm in Silver Spring, Maryland. I'm the CEO and co founder of Access Forge. We are an accessibility consulting firm that specializes in improving the overall guest experience. And what we mean by that is inclusive experiences that include people with disabilities. So we work with faith-based organizations as well as cultural institutions, airports, and other businesses that want to make sure that when they are marketing inclusively and that they're keeping in mind of everyone that is an actual buyer, so that, again, you're supporting everyone. I'll pass it on to Mark.
I'm Mark Barlet. I'm a service disabled Air Force veteran and the other co founder of Access Forge. And between Cheryl and I, we have over 50 years of experience really making sure that people with disabilities can have similar experiences to their able bodied friends, and so that they can enjoy all the things that are out there, including access to faith, when there may be some mismatches between the world around them and what they need to truly connect.
Fantastic. My name is Karen Bryant. I am founder of Bloom Theory Media, which is a multimedia learning and development company. And I specialize in leadership development, organizational learning. Through my Built to Connect series, I get the opportunity to really help people, leaders, heads of organizations, heads of teams, really not only connect to themselves and their gifts and their what, their purpose in a more solid way, but also how does that translate into the team or the organization that you lead and that you serve? And so I'm excited to be here tonight.
Good. And our other guest is Dr. Korey Grice. If he'll join us, he's probably held up. He is the CEO and the founder of Life Turn Network. And Life Turn Network has a series of things. One is a church and a great ministry there in the New Jersey, Philadelphia area. And he also has a therapeutic ministry. Well, I call it a ministry, but it's really a business. And he has therapists, and he can better tell you all the things that they're involved in. We had a chance to take a trip up to visit him in Pennsylvania, and he's got so much happening. I'm so very proud of him. I've known him since he was I don't know. We've known him for years, right? We've known for years. He's Dr. Korey Grice now, but when he was back at the church back in the day, he was little Korey Grice. And so proud of him. So tonight, I'm going to start off, and we're just going to have you guys. Listen, this is not just like an interview. I just have organic conversations, and so though there are questions that I may ask, let's just flow and how we flow with the conversation. I'm going to start with you, Karen, because one of the things that you and I talked about, you said something in, we talked about most organizations focused on the engagement, but they miss that connection. And talk a little bit about that, Karen, because I feel that was spot on. One of the things that you said, yeah, we look at that, but we miss how are we missing that?
Yeah. It's interesting because one of the things that we love about faith-based organizations or our churches, we love the tradition of it, right? Perhaps we grew up with it. It's comforting. You can sing the same songs. You understand, the structure and how it goes. And also for me, what I loved was the pageantry of some of the churches, the music. Just it's a real feel to it. And at the same time, what gets in the way, I think, of modern faith-based organizations is the tradition, right? So you've got both things sometimes working against each other. And sometimes in these traditions, we confuse attendance with belonging. Okay, well, we've got, a church body of 1,000, members, or 1,000 people fill the church seats every Sunday. But what percentage of those people feel like they're a part of the church? Are they members? And even if they are members, do they feel part of what's going on, the mission, the vision of that organization, right? Or is it just a routine?
Mm-hmm.
Every Sunday we go to church because that's what we do, as opposed to, and I'll get a little churchy, right? Do you carry that church with you, right? Monday through Saturday. Does the mission of that organization live in the people outside of that one convening, that one weekly convening? So it's something to think about in terms of, as faith-based organization leadership, what are you chasing? Engagement can fool you.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that the people are connected.
Right. I know years ago I went to a church, and I was so involved with the church, and I thought I was connected because I would see the people every week, and I was a teenager, and I was actually, my mom had stopped going, and I was in love with this ministry, served everywhere I could. And then something happened where I couldn't get a ride, and no one called me. No one called me, no one talked to me. And I was young, but I was so offended. I didn't go back to the church, and I missed it. I missed the church, but I didn't have transportation. And then I sat back and thought to myself, okay, did they really care about me? I went into all these other things. And I think some people do that. Being a leader of the church for years for myself, you talk to people and they do feel as if hey, this church doesn't love me. They just used me because they didn't feel
Mm,
like they had that connection. They just used me to get stuff done, and they didn't really care about that,
mm,
care about me at all. So, and Cheryl, we've talked a little bit in the past, Cheryl, and you talked about your parents and the disconnect that they had just for some things, and it kind of led you to what I call your misery turning into your ministry and kind of where you are.
Yes. I grew up in a small church, way before social media and stuff like that in the 70s. So, church was very different before technology and even COVID. And I think what's really missing with churches is, like you said, Karen, people really don't understand belonging. And I think a lot of churches miss the boat on that because, like you said, people can interpret things very differently. And I think with the modern church and how they're leaning into technology and social media, they really needed to find their mission and vision and how they support their congregation, whether it's online or in person, because there's a lot of people, a lot of generations, below the traditional group of people that used to go to church regularly, they look to go to church online. And
Mhm.
so it's whether or not that whole level of engagement, I think engagement has involved very deeply. And I think faith leaders really need to look at that. One of the things that happened in my life personally, I became a caregiver, a full-time caregiver about 7 years ago when both my parents got very, very sick and needed to relocate from a different state to Maryland. And my mother was an evangelist. And what transpired was that the church that she was attending down here, I noticed that they weren't supporting people who aged into disabilities. And so we would have conversations, but I was like, wow, you're putting all the people who maybe have walkers, wheelchairs in a corner. They can't
Mhm.
really sit with their family. There's no modular furniture so that they can sit. They're kind of like on the outside and they're not really engaging with them. And so I would have, minor conversations with my mother. And I noticed how her faith, it was affecting her because she wasn't enjoying going to church as much as she used to. She was very active. And it was just one of those insightful things since my background is accessibility. I've worked in policy for 20 years. I was like, something needs to improve because I'm sure I'm not the only person as a caregiver and my mom being, was an evangelist. There's other people here that are being overlooked. So Mark
mm,
and I created a framework called Belonging by Design to help churches look at inclusion and that whole sense of belonging and how they can really look at how they can address the needs and supports of people with disabilities. Not It's not interfering with their ministry, but just how they can actually have a foundation and approach that can address these issues so that people do feel like they belong, regardless of their abilities.
And see, and things like the live streams. I had talked to one senior at our church, and she had said that she enjoys the live streams a little better because we were coming off COVID, and it helped her a lot. But even with the live streams, she couldn't connect. She felt like she couldn't connect, and then there's sometimes like tonight when we were coming on, I had a lot of technical problems. So if you have technical issues, you could totally miss a whole bunch of people with that. Right, Mark? And Mark, you're a technical guy. We talked about some things offline and how to get things correct. And sometimes that's not a consideration. Or here's what I see, and you can speak to this, Mark. Some churches just feel like they get a camera and just throw it up, and I've got service online.
It takes more than that because
uh,
just because you're streaming out a service, if I am, can't hear, how do I
mhm,
know what's being said? If I have visual impairments, I might not be able to see what hymn we're going to sing next. I might not even have a hymnal. So just a camera and throwing it out there, I mean, that's an excellent start. But if that's where you end, then you are still disconnecting people. And keep in mind, people with disabilities, is one of the largest groups of people who aren't actively engaged in faith
Mm-hmm.
because it's just too hard. And so they stay home. And so, think about what your scripture tells you. There's a whole audience of people you're not connecting with because you aren't doing the small things that need to be done in order to truly welcome them in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Mark, while you're on it, what are some things that people should think about, especially with streaming, because it seems like this is the new age, and I'm thinking you have two sets of people. You have the congregation who are alive, but then you also have those who are outside the church who may not come to the church,
May not be able to get to the church.
right?
The
Right.
the truth is, having a disability, your life becomes a logistics problem. And think about people in your life who might have a disability. A simple trip to the grocery store may require metro access, may require home health aides, a friend, connection.
Mm-hmm.
All of that has a payoff. And so getting to church is one of those what's in it for me if I'm going to take on this monumental effort of getting there. So if you pivot to live streams and you do them right, you have your closed captioning on, you've got your graphic overlays like you do here, John, letting us know what the next hymn is going to be or things like that, then what ways to present feedback. I know, the great thing about faith is being in that room, having an interactive element that allows someone online to be in that room, then all of a sudden that person who may not be able to get to the building still feels like they're part of the greater community.
Okay. I forgot to mention this, and I'm going to jump because Karen, I want to piggyback this. I'm throwing up some of these comments. Some people have questions. If they have questions, I want, we can see these questions, I'll get them. But people just say, hello, Mark. How you doing, Karen? They're just telling you all hello. There's a bunch of folks saying hello from YouTube right now. Just say hello to you guys. So I forgot to stop that. And also, I got a contest. If you guys had a comment to this, we'll throw your name into a mix and we'll see. We're going to have a contest offline that's going to pull your name. Again, I want to piggyback something Mark said here that go into your wheelhouse a little bit about that connection piece, especially online. Some folks don't know who to talk to. And I know in churches when issues come up at times, people will run to, well, that's the pastor I need to talk to. I made a call and nobody answered the phone. And you and I've worked in different places and we've seen where messages don't get transferred. And if I say I'm a pastor and you were talking to me about, I guess, first level, because Mark mentioned something about maybe, I guess, surveys a little bit. You kind of alluded to that a little bit. Can you talk to me about what would I do if I'm a pastor and Miss Gladys has an issue? I mean, you think you can go talk to pastor. Pastor has so much going on, but shouldn't there be some other things set up in this structure? Because I know I think about that a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Miss Gladys seems to have a lot of trouble in any industry. Miss Gladys's name is always coming up. But I think you're right. I think, in the faith tradition, the pastor is a pastor, calling to pastor church, to shepherd a church, to preach, to teach, and what we have to, I think many modern day churches are realizing that they are an organization, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you've got to have staffing, you've got to have people in places to attend to the multiple dynamics that come along with, forgive me for saying, but this industry, if you allow me to think of it that way, because we're serving massive amounts of people. And like our neighbors here tonight, we were talking about Access, Access Forge, you need to have folks on staff whose job it is to oversee the organization in a way that we know who the people are. Like, you got to see who's in front of you. So my background, so 30-year plus veteran educator and principal, right? Teacher and principal. And, teaching 101, teach the kids in front of you. So who is in your classroom? So
That's
you've got to
good.
know who
Mm-hmm.
those folks are, a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more about them than just their name and how to pronounce it, and who
Mm-hmm.
your mama and your daddy is. We need
Mm-hmm.
to know more about you because what we would say is if I'm going all the way back to education reformers and American flag, like John Dewey, right? He is credited with talking about this idea of sort of there is a more of an active learning, right? None of the rote, passive memorization type of learning, but instead really advocating that learning is active, and you have to get people involved. It's problem solving. It's get all these things involved in a social environment, right? So I would say it this way. Use a sports analogy, baseball. There is a pitch and a catch, right, to learning in a classroom, but there's also a pitch and a catch to relationship building and community building. And so if faith-based organizations are always pitching, just throwing everything in their toolbox out there, and people aren't catching it, the loop for building relationships does not take place. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
occur. And so therefore you may have initially an excited body of people who will come to this event or show up at that, right? The attendance part or the engagement part, but they're going to fall off. It's a hollow shell because there's no true connection because that pitch and catch loop has not taken place. And so maybe there's somebody on staff who is completely dedicated to who are, there's a better name, I'm sure, than customer service, but someone who knows who the people are that come to
Mm-hmm.
church, who's got the data, the statistics. They have a team. And
Yeah.
now we know we have X percentage of people who are hearing impaired. So now, instead of, shoving them in the corner by the boiler room, where they can watch,
Mm-hmm.
I'm being a little exaggerated, but
No, it's good. Yeah.
how do we modify and renovate our traditions that are so beautiful to make sure that everyone can access them, right? So both for physical disabilities and also for, if you allow me to say this, if you allow me to say it this way, and Access Forge, please push back on me if this is going too far. But I want to think about some emotional disabilities, and I want to frame it in this context. I remember 9/11 in our country, right? We're
Mm-hmm.
in the US. I remember 9/11. And do you remember that influx of people coming to church? Like people literally walking in off
Yeah.
the street. It almost didn't matter what
Mm-hmm.
um, genre or genre, because I'm thinking about reading, but what type of church you were. Like all kinds of people came into church, and it was so cool to see all these people coming to
Mm-hmm.
seek strength and refuge and to make meaning from what's going on from a higher power. And it was such a thrilling time. I mean, a scary time, but a thrilling time, understanding that the creation was trying to come back to a creator, right?
Mm-hmm.
What happened since 9/11? I mean, I think we've seen a fall off gradually after that. And I would dare say that things appear even scarier than what we experienced at that time
Mm-hmm.
in our social community, right?
Mm-hmm.
So people are hurting, people are disenfranchised, they're disconnected and more siloed than ever. So right now, this live stream can go all around the world. So we're highly connected, right? But we're highly connected with people who are highly disconnected in their regular lives. So for me, I think of that as an emotional disability in a way that may not show up on the surface. It's probably a better way to say that, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So to your point, we've got to build it in. We've got to acknowledge that this exists. And again, I don't necessarily want the pastor to be on the phone calling, calling you, John, necessarily. Although that would be great if he called you to say, "Oh, you need a ride to church, let me
Yeah.
come get you."
It'd be
But
nice
we
to hear
kind
that,
of,
right?
right? I mean, that would be extra cool. But if he
Yeah.
has a congregation of 8,000, how
Can't do it.
difficult is that going to be for the pastor to do that? We want him to
Mm-hmm.
study the word, preach the word. We want him to be in his role, but he should build
Mm-hmm.
in his team and organization other folks who can do that
Mm-hmm.
sort of outreach. It's got to be there. That makes a big
Well,
difference.
Well,
Yeah. And so,
I just
and I
wanted,
know Mark and Cheryl, you can kind of speak to this about when you go into organizations. What's one of the first things you all look for to assist people? Because I'm sure you're going to make assessments. What are things that you all look for? Because just speaking what Karen's talking about, those some of those things aren't paid attention to. And I know being in leadership, you want to help everybody you can, but sometimes you miss things. You don't see things until it's a problem, and then sometimes you scramble and you're making the wrong decisions, and you think you're serving the people, but you're not.
well, Cheryl and I talk about it all the time, which is understand the resources you have available.
Oh, I
John,
think I
you
lost Mark.
said,
Can we hear Mark?
can you not hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Huh.
Very
Okay.
fun.
You talked about, well, Mark, you're a bit tech savvy. I'm the technical support person for all of my friends and colleagues. Cheryl has strengths that she brings to the table. And I think that if leadership kind of understood some of the soft skills that their congregation has, Karen, I heard it when you were talking about
Yes.
it. I was like, this is what, if you understood those soft skills that you have and empower those members to
Yes.
flex those soft skills, then you can have all this cool stuff. Cheryl, remember we've talked about some of this.
Yeah, we did. We did. Especially when it comes to empowering volunteers within the church, because we all know, I mean, I grew up in a small church and I must have had 20 jobs. And
Yeah.
even though I knew some of the jobs I had no business having, no business having, but I was assigned to it. Because you know, because back in the day, that's how it was. But I
Yeah.
think nowadays, it's unfortunate when we do go into churches and we have conversations. You know, one of the first things we do ask is, have you had any type of survey that you really understand the people that actually attend your congregation, whether it's online or in person? And then you kind of start from there, because I think what normally happens is, Karen, you'd mentioned, you know, physical disabilities and stuff like that. I think a lot of people don't realize that there's so many people that are walking around with cognitive disabilities, and that
Hmm.
ranges anywhere from autism, developmental delays, Alzheimer's, aging
And
congregants that are
mental health
aging,
challenges.
mental health, everything. And I think a lot of times they get really focused on, oh, sister so and so's in a wheelchair, or there's a small kid that has autism or whatever, but they're not thinking about the whole spectrum of all of the complexities that people have that are walking around. And I
The
think,
vast majority of disabilities are invisible.
yeah,
Right.
and I think people forget that. And I think the church is a community who their mission is, they want to support everybody, but do they really know how to support people? So even with when it comes to like the hospitality committee welcoming, how much are you getting information from people who attend, or are you making any, you know, observance or things like that, just to understand who's actually coming to the service? I don't think the pastor does not have the senior pastor does not have the capacity
Right.
to do all of this. He needs to have systems in place. He needs to have structure. He needs to have a database. He needs to have, you know, he needs to find some people who are willing to learn, willing to engage, and for him to empower, so that all this stuff isn't falling on him, because really those people should be coming with solutions. I mean, they can bring a problem, but they really need to have a solution, because a
Yeah.
senior pastor can't handle all of this.
Karen, and it's
Girl,
what
you better preach.
Karen, it's Karen, I think it's know your customer. And we
Yes.
find time and time again when Access Forge walks into a faith community, a cultural institution, or anything like that, some of the first questions we ask is, who are your customers? Who's walking through the door? And really tight knit faith based communities, really engaged faith leaders don't have an answer to that question sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I want to ask. I want to ask. Mark and Cheryl, what are some of the? And Cheryl, you can answer this. You know, what are some of the biggest mistakes you see people when you will say if somebody's coming and say, "Pastor, listen to this," and they say, "Okay, I want to fix some of these issues," especially when we're talking about like some of the things you've mentioned, Cheryl, in our conversations offline were quiet rooms for somebody that might have autism. We talked about things that we see announcements, video announcements, where everybody's going for video announcements. They don't consider the hearing impaired people just kind of jump to do things? What are some of the things that you all would think that they need to first consider before just jumping and doing something?
I think first, a lot of times churches need to organize a committee. They need to have an organized committee of volunteers, and that the pastor actually kind of pulls a small group of people together, including somebody with a disability that they can have like a general discussion first, because you can't just fix like random problems. I know, John, we talked a lot about announcements and things like that. I'll just give an example. I was invited to a service, and I found it interesting that they had captioning for the praise in the opening, but when it came to the sermon, there was no captioning, and the pastor had an accent. And to me, it was interesting because I was like, well, if somebody has a visual impairment or if they're hard of hearing, wouldn't you want the message to be something that they understood, or the scriptures that you were referencing? All of that stuff should have been captioned, not just the singing in the beginning. And that's something, was a huge celebration, the Easter thing. And I was really surprised that not all of it was captioned, because I would think that they invested so much in this event that all of it would have been captioned. One of the things Mark and I talk about with churches is, a first-time visitor, put some information on the website, what to expect. Because in the case of my mom, she couldn't stand very long. So if you're one of those churches that stand when you read or whatever, or how long the service is, because with her stiffness, we need to have an understanding of how long your service is, what to expect, and just have some basic information on a website.
Having a disability is a logistics problem. It's a logistics problem.
Is your front page welcoming to those with disabilities? And that was interesting, because I never thought about that. When you see the front page and they have pictures of people, is there somebody with a hearing aid or something that to let them know, hey, we welcome you? Now, Karen, that wouldn't be offensive, would it? I mean,
no, it's informative, and think about how often people they don't have an answer to something, they go and Google it, right? So people are becoming more, even if you're not a digital native, you are more likely to get online now and search something out, and you're more likely to be frustrated when you can't find what you're looking for.
But at the same time, if you actually expose that information on your website, and when I mean expose it, be detailed, because as I said, having a disability is a logistics problem, and a lot of that overcoming that logistics problem starts on the internet. But we're in the days of AI, and we're also in the days of AI overviews. So if you've exposed your accessibility properly on your website, that Google might tell you, well, when you go to this church, here's what you can expect, because it went and read it for you and gives that to the audience. And so I think that's something that is like that bonus to creating that accessibility page and really kind of exposing that information. And it's because it overcomes that logistics problem, and it makes a person with disabilities go, they've thought of me, I'm choosing this as my home.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Karen, some of the things that we have done, you've had different cool little tricks to do things with leadership, to get them to think and to connect, because we believe it starts with the leadership. If the leadership is not connecting, we've done our training days and those things. And so give some examples of some things that churches could do, not to give all your secrets away, but some things that they could start thinking about, because if the leadership is not connected, then how can we expect the church to be connected?
Right. I mean, that's an excellent question. The one thing, and I do have a lot of strategies, right? And the one thing I really want to highlight for leaders is, connection is definitely not a soft skill. It is definitely a leadership skill. And I want to put leaders in remembrance of, so we're talking about faith-based organizations. So these are people who believe they have a creator, they are created beings, right? And so think about it, at its very core, at the very foundation of existence, we as human beings are built to connect. Like every single part of us is built to connect. First to your creator, right? And then to yourself as you understand your purpose and your place and your giftings. And then, your connection with your creator and yourself forms the foundation for then how you relate in community. And when you know who you are, when you understand your purpose, and when you gather with other folks, right? The idea is that in that space, you have an idea to act out, right? Or to present the gifts that you have, right? And when you present and give the gifts that you have, it benefits the other people in that community. And so you have this cycle of connection. If we're talking Christian Bible, we're talking about Ephesians 4. We're talking about how every joint supplies, right? The body of Christ is described as multiple different parts, and every single part is important, and every single part provides a different service to the body. And without any single part, the body doesn't work, right? And so, yeah, there's strategies for days, but there's also a basic understanding that I need you, you need me. And so this organization has to be built so that people can remember that pitch and catch, right? And throw back, you've got to be able to complete that loop. And for me to be a solid member, right, or connected, or a person who feels that I belong in your faith-based organization, then I understand that I've received, and now I also have a space to give so that others can receive from me, so that and it's just this cycle of working out your God-given gifts and talents in the community. That's how you grow and develop, and that's how you meet. That's how the pastor is not going to come pick you up, John. That's how another member of the body is going to come pick you up, because now we understand this interconnected web of being that just makes the thing right, So that's what I would say. Just remember that foundational truth. And I think everything else can become clearer when you think of it from that perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the things, I have such a love for people. I hate to see people hurt. I just really do. When people, I know people leave churches for many different reasons. They've got callings, they move, and all kind of things. But when people stop coming to your church because of something that happened or didn't happen, that bothers me. That really does bother me. It hurts me. And people leave quietly. They don't, there's everybody doesn't just run off and scream and holler, I'm tired of this. Well, you got some that do that. But
Oh boy.
that's not the norm, People leave quietly. There's a silent leave. And we're talking about faith-based organizations, but I'm gonna jump here to Cheryl and Mark. Sometimes we can look at this as far as businesses, because people are losing money. Because folks will just disconnect. They might patronize your business for years, but it could be the one person, the one thing, or whatever. And how do you think ahead, Cheryl? How do you think ahead towards, okay, if I got a business, what are some things? Do I have to put myself in a place of somebody that has a disability? Or do I get somebody in to help me as far as we know you all do it, or ask? I mean, what's some of the things if I'm beginning? Let's just start it from there. If I'm beginning to open up a church, or I'm going to start a church, I'm going to start an organization, because you can be compliant to the state regulations, but you might not be compliant to your clients or your customers.
Right. Because with our tagline is it's accessibility beyond compliance. We are more looking at how we can best support people with disabilities, and especially in the case of there are plenty of stats out there that talk about young families that have children with disability that may be on the spectrum that just leave silently because they're not supported, that they're looked on if their child has an episode at the church, and some churches, I don't want to get into a deeper discussion, but some churches see that as, well, we can pray this out of them. And it's like, no, they have a cognitive disability that they have emotional issues that need to be addressed, whether it's, we talked about earlier, John, a sensory room where they can actually decompress, or it could be an older person in a congregation that has Alzheimer's and is having their type of episode, and that the caregiver or the family member needs to kind of pull them out and calm them down because they might be excited or something like that. Many parents just leave. I have a niece and nephew that are on the spectrum, and my sister has left churches in Texas because she's gotten strange looks, or just people weren't supportive. And they tithed and all of that and were active, but it only takes one incident to turn somebody off. And you think church is where you find refuge and comfort, but if it's not, if there's friction like that, people leave and they don't come back, they don't answer anything. And I think, like I said, modern faith-based organizations are businesses. They're businesses. They're not, it's a community that has a lot of resources and services, and you're supporting a lot of people. And like I said, you need to really understand who your audience and how best to support them. But Mark,
and if you've if you've gotten to know who your customer is, and Karen, I'm kind of using your terms, because at the end of the day, church is a business. Churches close down when people don't show up. That's the truth. Ask, identify those in your community most likely to need accessibility, and ask, what could we be doing to make your connection deeper? People will advocate for themselves if you create a safe space for them to advocate for those. I'm a person of disabilities. I will let you know if you make it okay that it's for me to say it, that this isn't working for me. Here's what we should be doing. And so you talk about faith, but it's also supposed to be a family. Well, families talk to each other. And if you've created that environment and you've asked the people, the caregivers, those that are most, who have a disability, who might be struggling, hey, could we be doing something better? I guarantee you, if you can, they will let you know and may be your biggest advocates for that change.
Absolutely. Can I just jump in?
Yeah.
I wanted you to jump in. Yeah.
Absolutely. You're making me think again. The answers are in the congregation. Like in most part, the organization leadership is working harder than they need to because they don't tap into the resources right in front of them.
Your tech nerds are going to church. Empower them to be tech nerds. You've probably got disability advocates in your audience who could spearhead these communities. If someone in church leadership stood up and said, accessibility is something I don't think we're doing great at, but it's important to me. Who wants to help me make change? You'll have a group ready to go.
And so you as a leader have to be in a place where you are willing to cede that control over the portion of the organization to the folks who know it best. They're going to create something amazing for you.
I think, and we're almost out of time here. One of the things that in preparing for the times we're coming to, because I think we're living in a time now, I'm not going to get prophetic here, but we're living in this time where people are looking for more connection. They're looking to be a part of something. They're not looking for all the nonsense that we used to get in churches and people playing around in pulpits. They're looking for that. And I'm sure that they can establish certain things. And Karen, you can speak to this. And as we go around, we'll do a quick little round circle with some things that you think that people can start looking at in your wheelhouse that you are experts in, and to start improving themselves, one, to help the people that they have, and to draw more people. So Karen, I'll start with you, and I'll go to Mark, and then we'll go to Cheryl. We'll let you close it.
Okay. So one thing that faith-based leadership can do right now to begin closing this gap that we're talking about Is that what you're asking for?
Yeah, I'm looking for, what can they do to help the people they got now, but also people are looking for something that are a part of your church or part of your organization. What can you do because faces I'm looking at as if I have it. That's how. So how do I plan to put things in place for that?
Mm-hmm. Okay, let me take this angle on it. So you're gonna cultivate your most solid community when people feel seen, heard, and valued, and they have the opportunity to be actively a part of building this community and connect to something larger than themselves, right? And
Mhm.
so I think I'm going to go back to probably repeating myself, but the first thing is launch an all-out campaign to find out who is in the room, find out who your folks are, hire Access Forge to do it, hire somebody, a strategist to come in, or a person connect with organizational learning. Find out who your people are deeper than a surface level, so at least you know exactly what you're working with as much as possible. So I think that would be the first thing.
Okay. Mark?
Understanding something that's called the curb cut effect. When you design for accessibility, what you discover is that it helps everybody. They put all those
That's
curb
me.
cuts in on the road for wheelchair users, but delivery people, people with luggage, people with strollers, so many people use that curb cut every day. Something that was designed for accessibility supports so many more people, and understand that that curb cut effect could happen in your faith community. That by supporting people with disabilities that come to your church, even if you don't see them, even if you don't know that they're there yet,
That's good.
it's going to help people that didn't know they needed that accommodation or feel more connected because it's there. They didn't need it, they wanted it. And you build that community Karen talked about, and you build out that deeper connection.
And I would add that we have resources on our website um, in terms of, framework, where some organizations don't know where to start, where they can go to our website just to look at our framework in terms of just free training, where they can look at belonging by design, where they can log in with their email address and start thinking about some of these questions to address the whole sense of engagement and belonging, because I think a lot of churches don't know what they don't know, and I think
Right.
sometimes they need to start by doing a little bit of research and seeing what's out there so they can improve. And then from there, I mean, definitely using Karen's example, Mark's example. I also think that with senior leadership, there really needs to be a strong buy-in. And so the pastor, even though he can make a blanket statement about wanting to improve accessibility, he really needs to stand behind that. So when the committee is formed, that it's very clear that he is very active and interested, so that when the committee can report back on their improvements and findings, that they feel very supported from senior leadership.
Absolutely. That's good. That's good.
John, I
You
don't
know,
know where you went.
I guess
you
we
know,
can keep talking.
while he's working his way back, I would throw in there, Mark, I love what you said about the curb effect. It's something that we do in education as well, where we're looking at students who might need certain learning accommodations, or, when you and again, it's that pitch, right? The pitch and the catch. But when you design a lesson that is, I'll use the term here, inclusive enough for those who need certain methods of learning, it's going to be essential for them, but it's going to be good for everybody. Everyone else is going to be able to tag on to that,
Mhm.
One of the
structure.
prime examples I use to kind of explain people is closed captioning. We know that closed captioning helps deaf and hard of hearing people. But if you actually look at the statistics of those that use closed captioning, women use closed captioning more than men. People who have autism or have or on the spectrum turn on closed captioning because they're looking for another layer of understanding. People who speak English as a second language turn on closed captioning almost always because, again, they're bridging a language gap. And so they're looking for the voice and the words. So when you say something like, well, closed captioning is for the deaf of hard of hearing, that's only part of the story.
Mm.
And so many more people use it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm getting trained. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
You're back.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. I apologize to everyone. I'm getting trained to, even when I set videos up, to put up the captioning in a lot of my things, you know. And it was interesting. And Access Forge, I have a link here. If they're interested, you all can explain what this link is for. It's an affiliate link that you can click. But I thought about proofing that, because sometimes you'll have automatics that will catch your voice. And I know for me, I don't have the proper diction all the time, and it will replace a word. I've read certain captions on certain sites, and I'm like, that is not what he said. Or it cursed.
But you can go in, and correct those. So you can go in and correct those.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in learning, there's a link here, but we have a framework, which is a self-guided structured framework, along with a community of like-minded individuals who are working to make their faith-based community accessible. And you can go to the URL, and I'm sure you'll share the URL out, John, as well, but it's accessible.faith. And I think it's /VFC media.
Yes,
correct?
and actually, if you look at the screen right there, there's a QR code right there. If you click that QR code, it will take you to that link.
So, and it's a framework and a community that helps guide you from nothing to being an incredibly accessible faith community. It does it in a way that, isn't going to break your budget. Things you can do right now to move the needle in accessibility in the next, this next week, this next month, and this next year.
And there is a discount code. There's a discount code there. So if you click that.
We also talk about grant opportunities for faith-based organizations as well. Since Mark and I both have a background in terms of like transportation services, if your church finds that you have a lot of people that may need transportation services, how you partner with disability organizations within your area. And we also wanted to stress that again, that the framework that we created is to support the church. We're not taking away from your ministry. This is all about, we are accessibility experts. So we are looking at the whole congregation, making sure that you're able to support all of the attendees that attend your service, whether it's online or in person. We are not interfering with your ministry.
And John, one of the modules is on transportation programs. So you wouldn't have been left behind if they had taken.
Look at that! Wow.
Yeah,
talk about coming all the way back around.
Yeah, see, 40-something years later, Karen, talk to me. If people are looking to get in touch with you and some of the things that you have available, we're doing I have the link there. You can click that QR code there and find out about Karen. You want to know her. Trust me.
Absolutely. I believe that the link goes to my LinkedIn, and I just love all things leadership development and looking at organizational structure and how we can do the teaching and learning part of structuring your organization to meet the organizational needs and to meet your goal. And so feel free to connect with me there. Send me a message on LinkedIn. I've got a cute little, cute. It's a free resource, a little guide about 5 questions every leader should ask to strengthen belonging, engagement, and trust that I'd love to send over to you. Just shoot me a message, let me know who you are, and I'm happy to do that for you.
And I have something for you all too. Listen, if you go by here, I've got a link here as well. I would love to connect with anybody out there that would love to connect with me. So I mentioned that I have something that I want to give away to everybody. So if you made a comment, I'm gonna have to go back and I'm gonna have to look at these comments because some of the comments come, because you got some people that come up and they say whatever in the comments, and I'm like, okay, I can't share that. Didn't have my third party helping me out here tonight, but go ahead and click that link. I've got something free I want to give you all. It is a leadership workbook. It will help you look at leadership differently. I have a core training, something that will help you just start thinking differently about your relationship management, your organizational development, and how to help people become dependable. I don't think the part of starting dependable is because people don't want to show up. Sometimes they don't have the transportation. Sometimes there's a reason. Sometimes they feel out of place. I remember years ago, I didn't go to church because I felt like I didn't have the clothing. I mean, that's not a factor much anymore, but I felt like I didn't have clothes. You find there's so many reasons people don't show up to do things. Or something which Cheryl alluded to, you have them serving in places they probably shouldn't be serving. Yeah, that's another thing. I'll let Karen talk to you about that. So, listen, I'm gonna do a quick round robin. And I'll start with Mark. If you had to give somebody advice on stepping out in their dreams, because I'm a big dream person, and what's one thing you would tell them to do, Mark? And then we'll go to Cheryl and end with you, Karen.
Never wait for permission to change the world. It'll never come.
Wow, that's good. Wow, Cheryl.
If it's in your heart, you should just keep doing it and don't worry about the negativity. Just keep moving forward.
Okay. And Karen?
Trust your instinct, take the leap.
I like it. I love it. Listen, you guys, I so appreciate you all being here. And, we said we try to keep this under an hour. And I thank you so very much for your time. For those who are watching us on social media, I generally put replays back up and I'll drop it into a podcast and leave it on the YouTube page so you can go back. Do me a favor, share it out. Share it out. Let people know. I do know that in certain ministries, there are people who you have to talk to. Man, just send them the link. Let them watch this. Let them get. And there's so much more we could have discussed this evening, but we just want to give you a taste. I want you to get in touch with Karen, with Mark, and with Cheryl, with Access Forge, and just click that link I have available to you. Just get a little taste of what they have for you. And definitely, Karen is an expert in her field. I just love the way I love watching her go. She's a dream maker. So, listen, thank you all for joining us for Vision for Change. Again, this is sponsored by my man DJ Soul, DJ Soul 73, DJSoul73.com. All social media, it's all DJ Soul 73. He is an extraordinary DJ. He is, I was going to shout him out here locally, but I'm finding he's all over the country in syndication with his midday mixes, and he's traveling around and doing stadiums. But trust me, you will not be disappointed if you have him come out and to your event. And as I always say, with everything that I say, all things are possible if you can just believe. So as my colleagues here just said, be bold in your faith, okay? You all have a wonderful night, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.